start with the next segment. Thank you.
Thanks, Riti. Hey guys, hope you had a nice tea break. So let's start with Yashaswini Vishwanath, who's here with us from Reva University. Hi. Yashaswini is a PhD scholar in machine unlearning. She comes with 13 years of technical expertise in the IT industry. Yashaswini has extensive exposure to document intelligence and has many projects in her forte. She teaches artificial intelligence ethics at Barcelona Tech School, a mentor to many building researchers and collaborators or experiment design. She has published works in research journals by performing innovative research design. Please welcome Yashaswini. So, a brief about her talk. She's going to speak about the new field of AI research called machine unlearning and examines the challenges and approaches to extend machine unlearning to generative AI. Machine unlearning is model-driven approach to make an existing artificial intelligence model unlearn a set of data from its learning. Uh, there is a lot more to the abstract, but I'm going to leave it to her because I think this is a vast subject and I'm sure she's going to do a fantastic job. Thank you so much, Shaswini.
Hi, I'm Yashaswini Vishwanath. I've been with Mindtree for the last 13 years. Currently, I am doing my PhD in part-time in machine unlearning for generative AI. I've just finished my coursework now. So the first 6 months have got over. And with whatever I have learned in the first 6 months, I have created this paper and it has got published in an international journal. I have a mentor called Sudha Jamte, who is a Stanford instructor, and with her I've co-authored with this paper. So we all know what is data. I'll come to women in data science. So everybody here knows what is data, why data is important, and who owns the data. So I'll be focusing on who owns the data. So we know that data is everywhere now. It is getting generated to an extent that data centers cannot hold them anymore. And the pace at which data is getting generated is very high when compared to how it was a couple of years back. There is large amount of personal data, that is data about specific user behavior, likes, dislikes, what they think. There are advancements in data storage, not that there are not. Improvements in data transfer exist. Excessive data is produced. Data is being recorded. Lots of data is there to be processed. So just some statistics here which are pulled up from the internet. So every 60 seconds, there is 98,000 tweets. There's all the statistics there. So it's a huge number. Every 60 seconds, that many number of data points are getting generated. So we say data is the new oil. Sensitive data like biometrics, passwords, and other data which are very specific to users are in a way of getting into the public domain, which is not right. Demographic data, behavioral data, contextual data. For example, your GPS location. It is on all the time, and somebody is always accessing that data and recording that and knowing where you are, what you're doing. Similarly, your behavior data, you may be going on one of the e-commerce sites and trying to buy a product there or just simply browse there. Even that data, that behavior, what product is seen and what is purchased, those are used. Not that they are used for bad reasons, but still the data is being captured. Now here I've taken a screen grab from the Inture website. So that they say there's 69 petabytes of data, 500K financial attributes per small business, 60K tags of financial attributes per customer, 20 billion transaction imported from financial institution. What I'm trying to drive here is there is a lot of data that is there, and there are institutions that are capturing this data and using this data and making meaning out of this data. If data is a new oil, are you the new Arabs? Do you have the oil? Yeah. Why do we need data? To increase revenue. Anybody who is using data to run some algorithms, get some insights out of it, they want to make more money out of it. They want their revenue to be increased, what we call it as monetization. But is it really your data? Who is the data owner? Who has the legal rights? We say that we have data centers all over the world now, and there is data everywhere. There isn't a place where data is not accessible. But there are also data leaks, because we have certain cybersecurity attacks like breaches, exploitation, getting the passwords and trying to get the data out of huge data centers. All such cyber attacks are seen in this era. This calls for data privacy. This calls for us to think about how we can keep our data secure. Now, coming again to this question, who is the data owner? When we take data from someone, they are the owners. This has to be understood that the owner of the data is the person about whom we are taking the data. It does not belong to the internet. It does not belong to the e-commerce website or any other website or platform that is gaining this data. It belongs to the user and only to the user. They are the owners. And the only right way to get the data to our platform, to make sense out of it, to gain revenue, an increase in revenue out of it, we need to take consent. So here is some image that I have put here related to this. Is consent freely given? That is, do they give it without knowing what it is? Is it reversible? That is, once consent is given, can we reverse it? Can somebody say, no, you cannot use my data anymore? Is it informed? Do they know that the data is used? What is it used for? How it is used? And what is the impact that it is creating? And specific. Of all the data that is there, how specific are the consent rules telling what is captured and what is not captured? There was a Google court case. It was Google Spain versus a person by name Gonzalez. This is called the right to be forgotten, where a person went ahead and sued Google, telling the data that Google was capturing was not taken in a consensual manner and he had withdrawn the consent. This happened for a couple of years, and this case finally told that the right to be forgotten exists with the person, with the user. This is the outcome of the ruling. they should consider requests from individuals to remove links to freely accessible web pages resulting from a search on their name. So consent can be withdrawn. Now, let us see, right to be forgotten. European Union's GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, it was mooted to include a right to be forgotten in it. Why is this important to all of us? GDPR is what rules the world. Unless and until we are having data protected by GDPR rules and okayed by GDPR, there is always a chance of anybody suing the organization for irresponsible practices. We have the CCPA regulation. This is the California Consumer Privacy Act. Even they have told about this topic of right to be forgotten. So a person can have the right to know about the personal information a business collects, the right to delete the personal information, the right to opt out. We all know that opt-in is default and opt-out is a choice, an option, but it should be the other way. But at least there should be an option to opt out. The right to non-discrimination for executing the CCPA rights. This is seen in Japan also. Slowly, each and every country is trying to come up with the safeguards about right to be forgotten. This is Consumer Privacy Protection Act by Canada. So they say the right to disposal will allow you to request the deletion of your information, withdraw consent as it is no longer necessary. And the organization which had captured this data should be in a position to delete it. So now all this while we understood that we have to delete the data at times when the consent has been removed. The other time we saw an image where there was a world map and there was data centers all over the world. So data is replicated, duplicated, so that it does not we do not lose data in if there is a fire or any such calamity. And for speed, the reasons of speed, data is duplicated at many places in the world. So is it enough if we delete the data? Is it enough if we delete the data? That is not enough, because the models that are running in these websites, they would have learned from the data. So we need to remove the data points or the learnings from a trained model. Machine learning process here is a simple vanilla machine learning process. We take the training data, we have the algorithm, we get the learning, train model, and the results. Now, what is machine unlearning? Machine unlearning is the act of trying to delete, remove, or erase the effect of data by having techniques which will remove that effect on the model. Here, just deleting the data is not enough. We need to have certain algorithms which will help in unlearning. We need to retain the model to erase. If we have to retrain the model to erase, by retraining, we mean that we need to have the entire data and it is computationally expensive. So we need specialized techniques, and also prior data should be known if we have to retrain it. And erase user information from model parameters. So the user information that has been captured by the model, we should be in a position to delete it. So that is unlearning. So there are different types of unlearning: model-centric unlearning, federated unlearning, data-centric unlearning, graph unlearning approaches. Let us look at data-centric approaches. We saw data deletion, but just data deletion is not enough. Data poisoning mitigation. Data poisoning is where the wrong data is injected into the system and the model learns from this data and it spews incorrect output. So here we see that machine unlearning can be used to mitigate this data poisoning. When we say machine unlearning, right to be forgotten, not just that, there are many other uses of this machine unlearning. Data sampling and data shuffling, that is one of the means. Inverse data generation. These are data-centric approaches. Model-centric approaches could be transfer learning, model pruning, knowledge distillation, model inversion. So here, there's a learning algorithm. So this is the current model. We get a removal request. There's an unlearning algorithm that is there. It could be model agnostic, model intrinsic, or data driven. And after that, there is verification. The verification that the unlearning has indeed happened is as crucial as the machine unlearning algorithm itself. There could be a feature injection test, membership, inference attack, forgetting, measuring. How do we measure forgetting? How do we have a metric, have benchmarks for this? This is a nascent field and it is open for us to have the pioneering works in this direction. What are the evaluation metrics? Accuracy, amnesis index, how much the machine unlearning has happened. There are certain requirements like completeness. Like for instance, we have a machine unlearning algorithm. It should not harm the algorithm in such a way that it does not do its functionality anymore. It should still be able to do its functionality, still be doing it accurately, and timeliness. What is the time duration that is required to do this machine unlearning? What is the, do we have minutes? Do we have days? What is the time duration we have? So we need quick algorithms in this respect. And the guarantee, when we run the machine unlearning technique, what is the amount of guarantee that we can give that the machine unlearning will happen? So these are, this is a system for machine unlearning. And there is sharding. Sharding method will break data into multiple shards and these smaller chunks will be retrained as separate shards and thus we get the predictions. This is the conventional method and this is if we are training it. Now, if we have to do the reverse of it, that is unlearn it, how will we go ahead with it is the question. So yeah, this slide talks about the problems of machine unlearning. Before I go to that, I'll go back to this. So there is this method called Seesaw, which is used in machine unlearning. It's also based on sharding, and just the way we use it for learning in shards, we can break it into shards and retrain only those parts and get the unlearning effect. I will skip this slide for the time. Either we can forget single class or multiple class of data. or forget cohort of data from single class, or a random subset of classes from multiple classes. So what are the challenges? Removing from backend databases cannot access data point. Retraining the model from scratch is expensive. In generative AI, we have billions of parameters that have been used to learn. So which is the data that has to be removed? The identification of the data that has to be deleted, that has to be used for retraining or unlearn itself is a question. Memorization attacks. Specific data from a trained model, how do we take it? Remove the data, but the model should predict with the accuracy like before. This is very important that the accuracy should still be maintained. Usability. So this is just an example where in 2022, somebody searched for a product on phones. In 2022, again, they cleared browser history from all devices. 2023, they get ads about the search product in all websites. So the data erasure is not correct. ML model, we have the unlearning process. We get the new ML model, and then we can assert the success of unlearning. This is for telling how unlearning mechanisms can be used for bias mitigation and how we can incorporate it in the LLM development lifecycle, large language model lifecycle, how we can use that in the pipeline, how we can use machine unlearning to do bias mitigation, copyright removal, privacy compliance, safety alignment, hallucination removal. So these are different unlearning targets, tasks. There are different erasure methods. These are the erasure methods that are there, the machine unlearning methods, and those are the effectiveness. Different methods are effective at different places. And what is the efficiency? This is taken from Kush Varshney, who is an IBM researcher, the research paper Kush Varshney et al. And I have captured this. This is very important for generative AI. If we go through this, we will get, this is the latest paper in this area. We will completely get to know what are the machine learning techniques that one can have for LLMs and for generative AI. So the distinction between LLM unlearning from conventional machine learning, that is what is the key takeaway of my talk. Here, we do not know which is the parameter because there are billions of parameters. The effectiveness, how to measure the effectiveness and the scope of it. But there is a clear need, given that we have hallucinations and we have different problems that we have with generative AI and LLMs. So this is the mathematical model. Why do we need machine unlearning? It is to build trust between humans and AI. So let me go to this. Machine unlearning is our problem. Let us be responsible and do responsible AI. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Shaswini. It was a great talk. And I think we all learned a new field today. I don't think I personally have heard of this field, but I don't know much about it, to be honest. And I'd love to hear more about it. So looking forward to some questions from the audience as well. So I can start. I have a question.
Yes.
So fundamentally, you said that the accuracy of the machine shouldn't go down if you remove a particular example, right?
No, the accuracy has to be maintained.
Maintained, correct. But fundamentally, that's difficult. You can assume that if, for example, if you actually have a cohort of people who are from a similar part of the parameter space,
Yes.
it's difficult to maintain the accuracy.
Yes.
Right. So how do you go about that process? Like, how do you minimize that loss?
That is the challenge. So
Okay.
I've opened up
Oh, I
the
see. I see. Okay.
challenges here.
Got it. Got it. Sounds
But
good.
whatever you mentioned,
Yep.
that is actively researched, and as of today, 2024, if somebody can work on that, then it's a very good research topic.
Sounds good.
Mm.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.